Hi, I'm Travis. I'm a former U.S. visa officer with the U.S. Department of State. I spent almost 7 years with the State Department, much of which was abroad, where I interviewed tens of thousands of visa applicants from all over the world. And since retiring from the State Department, I've dedicated my career to helping visa applicants navigate through this often confusing and sometimes scary application and interview process. Today, I want to talk about this concept that you may have heard about in the news recently, often referred to as birthright citizenship. What is birthright citizenship? Why is it so controversial? And what might some potential changes to our long-standing policies mean to you, your family, and your visa journeys? Let's start with what it is. Birthright citizenship is something that has existed in the United States for a long time. It was actually included specifically in the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which specifically says that all persons born or naturalized in the United States are subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. In other words, if you are born in the United States, you are automatically a U.S. citizen. You automatically have access to a passport and all of the privileges that come with that. So why is this so controversial? It seems very clear-cut, and if you are pregnant and you have a child in the U.S., they're a U.S. citizen. Isn't that the end of the story? Well, unfortunately, it's not. This has been controversial for a number of reasons and for a number of years. First of all, let me talk about just the act of giving birth in the United States. Not the biological aspects of it, but particularly the cost of giving birth in the United States. The healthcare system in the United States is very expensive. This is something that I consider to be a problem that we should be trying to fix, and there are many in the government that are focused on this. But what that also means is we all know that giving birth in the United States can be very expensive. Now, there are government assistance programs and various insurance programs that can help those that are less able to pay the full cost or sometimes any of the cost of giving birth. And unfortunately, there are many that come from outside of the United States to give birth in the country. They end up leaving without ever paying for the cost of the birth, and that means that U.S. taxpayers are left to pay the bill. This has created some resentment and some actual anger in many because they feel like we're the ones paying taxes. Why should we pay for some foreigner to come to our country and take advantage of our medical system? Now, beyond the cost, there is also an argument that many make that if you come to the United States, give birth, and then go back to your home country, which is often the case, though your child is technically an American citizen, a U.S. citizen, that child, that human being, may have virtually no ties to this country. They may not really understand American culture. They may have really never spent more than a few days or maybe a few weeks on American soil. And so while what it means to be an American is actually a very complicated idea because we are considered to be a melting pot, we have people from virtually every culture, every walk of life that speak every language. The United States doesn't even have an official language, by the way. So it's hard to say what it means to be an American, but there is an argument that some people make that if you're born in this country and then you immediately leave, you're really not American. You really don't know what it's like to be in America. You're not representative of our country. Why should you have access to the benefits that our country offers? And then finally, a major source of controversy lately is the belief or the assumption that birthright citizenship incentivizes or prompts people to come to the United States under false pretenses, maybe just to give birth so that their children can be U.S. citizens, and then one day, once that U.S. citizen child reaches the age of 21, that child can actually file a petition or an application for their parents to obtain a green card and eventually become citizens themselves. And so there are some that come to the country perhaps illegally or perhaps under some sort of false pretense to give birth in the country so that they themselves have a path to citizenship in the future. Now, for a number of years, there was a little bit of a gray area. Many people came to the United States legally on B1, B2 visitor visas, but their real purpose was not to attend a meeting or maybe take a short holiday or vacation, the things that are specifically allowed under the B1, B2 visa. Instead, their primary purpose of traveling to the United States was to give birth. Now, for a long time, visa officers were very skeptical, especially when they encountered a pregnant applicant, because some visa officers looked kind of negatively upon this idea of traveling for the sole purpose of giving birth. There was always a possibility that a mother or the parents may not pay for the birth and, create a burden on the US taxpayer. And then there was also that argument that I covered a moment ago that this child will never really be American. They're just going to go back home, but they'll still have access to all of our government assistance programs and other benefits that taxpayers are funding. And so many visa officers were skeptical when they found an applicant that looked likely to be traveling to the United States to give birth, and not for whatever reason they provided at their interview. Now, a few years ago, the US State Department clarified their policies. And on the State Department's website, if you navigate to some details about the B1, B2 visitor visa, there is now a clarification that birth tourism is not allowed. The State Department specifically says birth tourism, which they define as travel for the primary purpose of giving birth in the United States to obtain U.S. citizenship for their child, is not permissible on a visitor visa. So to be very clear, you should not expect to apply for a visitor visa so that you can go to the United States and give birth to a child that will be a US citizen. What does this mean for you? Now, this is important. Many people are in the United States for a variety of reasons when they give birth. Of course, biology doesn't stop or pause itself for visa regulations or other life situations. So there are people who give birth every day who may be in the middle of a school program. They may be in the United States on a work visa, like an H-1B visa. They may actually be in the United States attending a trade show or a conference, and complications develop in their pregnancy, and they're required to not travel back home for fear that they might endanger themselves or their child, their unborn child, and then they may end up giving birth in the country. And so it is likely to be a long time before we have distinct clarity on what this country will do and how this country will handle birthright citizenship. Given that birthright citizenship is part of the 14th Amendment of the US Constitution, it is highly unlikely that any president can simply issue an executive order to erase the policy that if you're born in the United States, you are a US citizen. However, there are a number of ways that the president or others in power in the US government may try to curtail or limit the purview of birthright citizenship. And so, first, I would advise you, if you are planning to apply for a visa or if you already hold a valid visa, I would recommend that you follow the US news closely on this topic. Make sure that if you are planning to get pregnant or planning to start a family, that you will not be violating any policies. Because of course you don't want to complicate your future visa journey and maybe a path to a green card if there is one for you. You should also think about future planning. I know that this is probably fairly uncommon, but there are some people who come to the United States on an H-1 visa, they have a child, and then their plan for the future is that maybe once that child turns 21, they will be able to qualify for a green card pursuant to their US citizen child. There is always a possibility that that path to a green card is limited or maybe eliminated altogether. So as you are thinking about your future plans, Again, stay on top of the news. Stay on top of how this debate develops. At the time that I'm filming this video, there is a court order that is essentially forcing the executive branch of the government, the president, to allow birthright citizenship. A federal judge has found that an order eliminating birthright citizenship is clearly unconstitutional, and so this policy stands today. However, as I mentioned, there could be a number of ways that this policy is restricted in ways that are maybe found to be constitutional, or in other words, legal or proper and appropriate. And so stay on top of this because it could affect how you plan your future. And if you are traveling while you're pregnant, consider potential restrictions on this. And one thing that I will always advise my clients, and this was before the birthright citizenship debate really sparked earlier this year, and that is if you are traveling while you are pregnant and there is any chance that you may have to stay in the United States and give birth, let me advise you a couple of things. First, I recommend that you make sure you pay the entire cost of the birth. Pay all of your medical expenses and make sure you keep a complete record of all of the costs you incurred and all of the payments that you submitted. Number two, you should expect some additional questions at your next visa interview. A visa officer is likely to, first of all, it will be clear that you have given birth in the United States, and so they are likely to ask you about the circumstances that gave rise to that situation. You should be very clear about why you planned to go to the United States. You should be very clear about what led you to give birth in the United States, and you should be very clear about how you paid for all of the expenses. This will be a complication in future applications, so keep this in mind as you are planning for your future family and your future visa journey. And this is one of the reasons precisely that we offer both one-on-one consultations, where we help applicants prepare for the visa journey. We help applicants navigate through complications that they may have already experienced, such as a previous birth in the United States, and we help applicants avoid potential complications in the future. If you are interested in connecting with either myself or my partner Mandy, we are both former visa officers and both licensed U.S. immigration attorneys, please visit our website at www.zfvisa.com. You can schedule an initial consultation with us right from our website, and when you do so, we'll send you a detailed questionnaire to gather some details about your situation so that when we connect, we can work together to align on a strategy to help you navigate forward and maximize your chance of success in your next visa application and interview. We also offer a range of online courses for both the B1, B2 visitor visa and the F1 student visa. If you are planning for either a visitor visa or a student visa application, or even if you are in the middle of the application process and your interview is coming up soon, visit www.zfvisaguides.com, where you will find a range of comprehensive courses and guides to help you navigate through the process. And again, tips to avoid complications, tips to prepare for your interview, how to effectively communicate with your visa officer, and even the basics, like how to fill out your DS-160 form, when and where you should schedule your interview, what you should wear at your interview. And then, for some of our courses, you will also unlock access to a live, bi-weekly question and answer session with either Mandy or myself, so that you can ask any of the lingering visa-related questions that you still have. Our goal is to help you maximize your chance of success. We want you to succeed in the interview process if you are qualified for a visa. And so we have a range of tools designed to help you understand the process, to shed some light on this complicated journey that is ahead of you, and to hopefully help you come out with a positive decision. Follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram to stay updated with tons of valuable resources and the latest updates about different US visas.